There's been a slow burn regarding the right wing and the general acceptance of gay people. In the early 2010s, it felt like the age of the religious right was over. People were generally okay with gays and lesbians being around and visible in society. Gay marriage had arrived to the West and seemed to be going okay. And some conservatives understood that monogamy could be the glue that keeps a gay couple together and away from what was frankly pretty self-destructive behavior that gay people were known for in the 70s and 80s, just as it had done for straight couples. In fact, the right-wing argument against immigration from a decade ago was that if, for example, a Western nation became a majority Muslim one, all of those gay rights that we as a liberal society value would be rolled back due to the growing religious extremism. It was surprising for me, yet welcome, to see the new young crop of right-wingers begin to adopt these positions. But unfortunately, I think the right wing is shifting back into the old mold. It started with more extreme elements, saying that traditional society is based, actually, and that Russian orthodoxy or Muslim fundamentalism were finally pushing back against the degenerate atheistic liberal world. Now, part of this shift was absolutely spurred on by the growing politicization of the LGBTQ movement after gay marriage was achieved in America. The argument before gay marriage was equal rights, and that was a good argument. It meant integration into liberal society. But that isn't the way the activists think anymore, much to the chagrin of older gay and trans people who frankly just want to be left alone. But a few weeks ago, I saw people who I generally view to be reasonable on the right take up positions that I never thought would make a return. I know Jeremy, the quartering, to personally be an agreeable guy, but I can't agree with him here. Dave Rubin, Pete Buttigieg, Shane Dawson, rich gay men who use their status to purchase babies as props for internet clout. All three rushed to post their purchases to socials moments after being ripped from their birth mothers. It's disgusting, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. What the quartering is talking about here is the successful surrogacies of these three high-profile gay men. All of them are following the path that was laid out for them a decade ago for gay acceptance. Stop having promiscuous sex and emulate heterosexual couples. Monogamous married life. Have a productive job, house, and kids. Try to be a positive part of the community. But now the complaint is that because these gay men wanted to have children that they were biologically related to, and therefore they had the kids through surrogacy, where a woman agrees to carry the child for them, that this was somehow immoral. And while it wasn't just the quartering who jumped in on this conversation, he was probably the most high-profile person involved in it. He posted this picture of one of the men holding their newborn in what appears to be a hospital setting, with the caption, "This poor child is likely trying to latch to his mother's breast for life-sustaining milk, but instead gets a weird mouthful of gay man chest hair who bought the thing and likely thinks it feels weird." Like, this is fucking unhinged, dude. He's just holding a baby. When it was pointed out that the picture doesn't actually show the baby trying to suckle at his breast, Peter Griffin style, the quartering replied with, "Children are not accessories and shouldn't be grown in a lab for weirdos to post pictures online LARPing as a mom or dad." So let's look at their arguments. Some of them are saying that it's human trafficking, that because surrogates generally get paid in exchange for giving up their time and energy and body for 9 months, the couple is buying a baby, they're buying another human, and that the women themselves only agreed to do it because they're poor, making it exploitative in the same way that prostitution is. But this doesn't seem to be the case, at least in the States. Most women who agree to be surrogates tend to be middle class, married, and Christian, who report enjoying the feeling of being pregnant and wanting to help others who can't have kids of their own. Nonetheless, this view of surrogacy as inherently exploitative isn't a fringe one. For example, back in 2016, Sweden's parliament published an inquiry into surrogacy, recommending that the country ban all of it, commercial as well as altruistic, as well as preventing Swedish citizens from going overseas to do it. The argument about women being exploited applies only to commercial surrogacy. So why do they also reject altruistic surrogacy? The report stated that it's unreasonable for a woman to sign away the rights to a baby she doesn't even know or seen yet. And fair enough. There are many cases of surrogate mothers who, after having given birth, desperately want to renege on the agreement and keep the kid. The other side of the argument, though, is that the report seems to imply that women who choose to be surrogates aren't really capable of deciding these sorts of bodily autonomy questions for themselves, which also just isn't true. The next argument is that it's because the parents are gay, and therefore this is immoral. The quartering said in a reply to straight couples using surrogacy as an option, "I tolerate that because at least the baby has a mother and father. I still detest how rich straight couples use it, Hollywood, etc. This is an extension of the all surrogacy is wrong argument because kids should know their actual parents. But it's especially wrong for gay people to do it because the kid wouldn't even have a parent of the other sex. Of course, this is also an argument against adoption, because adopted kids don't know their parents either. And in its most extreme form, this logic leads to kids remaining with clearly unfit parents because they are their parents. Of course, the quartering didn't say that, but that is where the logic naturally leads once developed. The third argument is that gay parents abuse their children at higher rates. A few stories of this actually happening began to circulate during this time. One where a gay couple sexually abused their adopted sons while also pimping them out to other men. Another where a gay couple hired a Russian surrogate to carry their child, only to immediately begin recording themselves sexually abusing the baby and sharing the video on the dark web. The police uncovered evidence that this was their sole reason for obtaining the child. The first two arguments were moral ones, on which there is significant disagreement from the get-go. The first one, that surrogacy is child trafficking because you're buying a child, is frankly a matter of interpretation. I personally feel like commercial surrogacy skirts the line a bit too close for my comfort, but the people who voluntarily do it out of the goodness of their hearts, that's their choice and not yours. The second one, that surrogacy takes kids away from their real parents, while true, isn't necessarily indicative of any wrongdoing. We take kids away from their parents all the time when the parents are bad. Parents also give up their kids for adoption all the time as well. Should both of these things stop? I don't think so. To me, the second argument just isn't persuasive, especially if the surrogate parents aren't actually abusing their kids. Which then leads us to the third argument. What if they are? Or more generally, what if gay parents are actually just naturally worse at being parents? Whether that's because they have a higher chance of abusing their kids, or because kids miss out on having a parent of the other sex around, or any other factor. Well, that's a data argument, not a moral one, and we do have data to look at. Now, progressives generally don't like looking at the data on this topic because, spoilers, it doesn't look that good for the gays. And in fact, they tend to call you a bigot or a Nazi if you dare to examine what's actually happening here. But we can be a bit more intellectually honest than they are. A study in 2005 examined child molestation by gay parents in Illinois from 1997 to 2002 and found that 34% of the parents of foster kids or adopted kids homosexually abused those kids, meaning mothers sexually abusing daughters and fathers sexually abusing sons. It doesn't say how many of those abusers were in straight or gay relationships though, and it is conceivable that an abuser who is nominally straight still sexually abuses a child of the same sex out of a power-based desire, not a homosexual one. Another study, also from 2005, examined cases of child sexual abuse by foster parents reported in the news from 1980 to 2003. The cases in which the abuse was homosexual was extremely disproportionate to the actual gay population, and the vast majority of abusers were men. It's not just abuse though. A 2013 study showed that the children of gay couples were less likely to graduate high school. A 1996 study in Australia showed that both success in school and social development were highest among kids of married straight couples, lower among cohabitating straight couples, and lowest among gay couples. There's similar results from two 2012 studies regarding the kids of gay relationships and school success. A 2009 study showed that the adult children of gay couples have a harder time with intimacy, trust, and the ability to build relationships. Another 2012 study showed that the adult children of gay couples suffered from a broad range of emotional and social problems. A 2013 study, not about kids raised by gay couples specifically, but about kids of surrogacy in general, showed adjustment difficulties throughout youth and puberty of the kids who knew that they were a product of surrogacy. And a 2015 study found that after controlling for age, sex, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status, the children of gay couples were more than twice as likely to have ADHD than the children of straight couples. So far, it seems like the idea that gay people are just like straight people and just as capable of raising children might not be accurate. And the progressive reply to this data seems to be to just ignore it for ideological reasons. But there is a silver lining. A study out of the Netherlands shows that after adjusting for cultural stressors associated with being gay, there are no significant disadvantages between kids of gay parents and kids of straight parents. A 2023 study examining data collected between 2015 and 2022 determined that the mental health gap between kids of gay couples and kids of straight couples had largely disappeared compared to earlier studies. And a 2006 study examining gay marriage showed that when gay couples were married, their children tended to enjoy the same benefits of marriage that straight children did. So it might be the case that some of this stuff is social, and we're seeing those problems slowly alleviate as gay acceptance has increased over time. Maybe your knee-jerk response to this is to say, well, those studies are new. They're obviously biased. We should just ignore them and trust the old ones. But then you'd be in the exact same camp as the progressives who don't want to look at the old studies at all, ignoring data for ideological reasons. The truth seems to be that while there are significant differences between the children of straight relationships and the children of gay relationships, the playing field is leveling out over time, and it's happening as gay acceptance increases. It's not just that though, because healthier gay behavior on the part of the parents is also likely contributing to the alleviation through creating a more stable home situation. A study from 1998 showed that pre-1994 gay men had, on average, a 20-year shorter lifespan, mainly due to drug use and HIV. Obviously, the choice to have bug-spreading sex and do drugs constantly is an individual one. But where do we pinpoint the source of that behavior? Are gay men just naturally degenerate since there's no risk of pregnancy with their sexual activity? Is this a product of them being cast out of society and developing an outsider culture that rejects all things heteronormative, even if it's good for them? I don't know. But if the reduced 20-year lifespan comes from drugs and HIV, and a gay man nowadays chooses a healthier lifestyle with no drugs and monogamy instead, I can't see this being applicable to him. Of course, even now the popular gay subculture isn't helping things. The whole monkeypox thing from a couple of years ago spread primarily among the gay community for a reason. Poppers are well known in the gay community as the go-to sex drug. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? Why are there so many burnouts that a whole-ass sexual orientation has a go-to sex drug? And when 1 in 8 sexually active gay men in London have HIV, you know that there's a problem with at least that city's gay nightlife. Even if gay people can buck the trend of unhealthy behaviors, it seems like a lot of them aren't. Or at least, progress in that regard is slow going. And as long as these problems are present, the people who have those problems just are not parent material. It's not clear what the root cause is, though. It is true that gay people tend to have more abusive parents, but does the abuse make them gay? Or are they being abused for coming out as gay? That it doesn't say. Do gay men behave this self-destructively due to living in a homophobic society? Is the gay subculture overly sexual and degenerate as a defense mechanism? Are gay people just overly sexual and degenerate themselves? Do the kids of gay couples experience their issues because they lack a parent of the other sex to properly model? Or is it because gay parents are simply more dysfunctional individuals than straight ones, due to any of these reasons? I personally wouldn't be surprised if, in a perfectly inclusive society, with everyone being ideal parents, with none of these social problems, straight couples were still just better for kids than gay couples. At least a tiny bit. Some of these problems that the kids experience are likely just endemic to having gay parents, probably regarding the modeling stuff. But considering that the huge gap between them is closing, as both society becomes more inclusive of gay parents, and as gay people themselves stop acting like degenerates, I think way more of the problem is not just endemic to being gay. The gay inclusive conservatives of 10 years ago, rest in peace, were probably correct when they said that the gay community is made better by their inclusion in married life. Now, those high-profile sexual exploitation cases are still very serious, and we can't simply hand-wave away the data showing that gay men are more likely to sexually abuse their kids. Crying about homophobia and bigotry doesn't refute the numbers, and it certainly doesn't make the lives of those child victims any better. But obviously, not all gay people do this. And more importantly, we wouldn't use this logic to blanket restrict any other demographic's ability to adopt or foster or get a surrogate to carry their child. For example, a step-parent is way more likely to abuse a child than a gay parent is. And yet, we still allow good step-parents to adopt their partner's children. And when possible, we try to protect children from bad step-parents. We're not that successful at it right now, yeah, but we don't use the prevalence of step-parent abuse to justify barring step-parents from adopting kids. We take an individualist approach. The good ones should be free to live their lives unimpeded, and the bad ones should be apprehended and brought to justice. Why wouldn't we use the same logic for gay parents? It would not be justified to take the children away from a good gay couple because of the actions of high-profile bad gay couples. And this is the main reason why I reject the arguments of the Quartering and the others on this topic. Liberal individualism is, once again, the answer. Even if gay parents are less likely to be good parents based on the data, individuals buck trends all the time. Good gay parents can exist. They do exist, obviously. And they shouldn't be restricted just because other bad ones also exist. The other complaints about how it's child trafficking or whatever, they just don't stand up to scrutiny in my view. How about this? If you're a right-winger watching this and you disagree with my take, you think that the gays are just super dangerous to kids, you've seen those terrible news headlines with your own eyes, and you can't be convinced otherwise. Let me put it this way. Those stories make the news in the first place because they're unusual. The news generally doesn't report on things that regularly happen. That's your logic on why the news have stopped reporting on when black people commit crime, right?